Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Camerascore, where we discuss all things media. And we're back on that music this week. It's an R&B summer. We've got 3 albums to talk about. Let's first start with Masego, his latest album. Does he deliver after all these years? It hasn't been too long. He's been dropping singles. But let's get into it. Masego's latest album, 16 tracks, called Fix Your Face. Does he deliver on all 16 tracks? On my first listen and subsequent listens, even more so, he absolutely positively delivers. I don't know how he manages to keep this musical quality over and over and over again. His intent, his ability with instrumentation all come through beautifully on most of these songs. Or I guess all of these songs. Now, my favorites off the top are Limerence, QVC with Leon Thomas. We have, I want to say, it's so tough. Maybe Recommend, and then maybe Overthinking with Music Soul Child, always a classic. But there's so many songs on this album that I truly, truly love. And the way that it flows together, the way you can listen to this album, is just another testament to his instrumentation and ability to deliver as an artist. Now, first start off with Sounds Like, where he's talking about the highlights of the good life and the things he loves, to a smooth mix of R&B and a little bit more low-key notes. And I think it's a great intro to the album. Then we get right into Heaven, Limerence, and QVC. Now, it's just showing how he kind of blends seamlessly love with life and with just a little bit of that Masego jazz I'm the best cocky flair that there is. You know, he goes into Heaven with a little bit more of that soulful R&B, slow talking about a person. But then by the time he reaches QVC with Leon Thomas, who adds his own flair that I love, it's a little more upbeat, a little bit talking about what a QVC even is. Now, to be honest, I had to look this up. It's there on the screen. I've never heard this term before, but shout out to him for, letting me learn something. Then we go into Someone, I Know You, and Wonder Woman. Now, another 3 set that I think flows perfectly well. I will admit, I was a little worried about I Know You with Fayura. Very cool voice, very sultry, very raspy but smooth at the same time, but I feel like a lot of his features are very much wasted. In this song, he absolutely positively delivers. I really like his feature on this one, and I think it's the perfect fit for his type of voice. The storytelling aspect, and the way that he smoothly intones the way that he speaks with a little bit of that musical flair. So then we got Hello, Go, and Breathe. So Hello with Buju Banton is the only one that's a little bit iffy for me. I love him. I don't know if I love him on this song. A timeless legend, classic, all those things. But the production of the song isn't the greatest in my personal opinion, but still not one that takes too far away from the album. And interestingly enough, on Dotted Line, he kind of uses a little bit of that tropical flair with a little bit of the drums. I think it's interesting to have Buju Banton on the song that he chose him for, with a little bit of that kind of reggae Jamaican upbeat, but then to go fully tropical on the next one without him. Very interesting choice, but again, doesn't take away from the album in my opinion. Now, Gone with Masego and Lacan, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. It's your classic acoustic guitar with just these deep voices that, not deep in terms of the tone, but in terms of the feeling they're trying to convey, that really give you a perspective of yearning, of softness, of sadness. Then we get into the last few. Overthinking, Recommend, Simone, and Charlie Brown. And I think it flows really well into this last section of the album, because when we get to Recommend, oh my goodness, this one is a banger for all playlists of all kinds. This should be a song of the summer, in my personal opinion. The way it jumps back and forth between the funkiness of it with the voice that Masego has is just so amazing for me personally. Now, I don't know if it really could be a radio hit, but for me, this is triple platinum in my household. And then Simone and Charlie Brown are both softer songs that kind of highlight the other sides of Masego. And I feel like we don't necessarily learn too much about him in this album, but after all, it is an R&B album. That's usually how these things go. Love, loss, happiness, relaxing on a tropical island, a tiny bit about themselves, and then they wrap it up. But I feel like this album gives us just enough of his insight of what he's been going through recently, especially on songs like Overthinking, songs like Wonder Woman, I Know You, Someone. They kind of add a little bit of his perspective, obviously told in terms of love through someone else, but they add enough of his perspective to make it very, very interesting. I absolutely love this album. But I'm just here for the camera score. And for this album, it's gonna be a 15 out of 16 or a 16 out of 16, depending on how much you want to scrutinize that Buju Banton song. But that gives us a 9 to 10 out of 10. Masego is back, his instrumentation is amazing, and as always, he delivers on the vocals. It really shows how much instruments or how many instruments he knows because the way he blends them all seamlessly, you can tell that he's giving some kind of direction to the people performing, if not performing it his damn self. Great work from Masego. Up next, we have the long-awaited project from Syd Beard. Now, if you don't know, a beard is someone who uses a woman to essentially hide the fact that they are not necessarily straight. Now, I don't know if that's what she's going in this, but it is a cool title. I also like the artwork too. The grayscale, the out of focus with movement is really cool. Now, it's only 12 songs, the perfect length for an album in my personal opinion. And again, we have a great delivery. So Syd, whereas Masego was a mix of funk and jazz and a little bit more upbeat notes, Syd is R&B through and through. She has songs that, I'm not gonna lie, are for very specific playlists. Played late at night when you are with someone special. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. No sex before marriage though. But the point is, she delivers on another R&B album in ways that only Syd could. When we get right into it, we have the first song that sets the tone, Walls. Now, she's not talking about the walls of a house, just to be very specific, but the sultry, smooth notes of her voice, complemented with traditional R&B production that I know she's had some hand in, is just absolutely amazing. I mean, from the discovery of the internet for me and Hive Mind, I've been a big Syd fan. And that continues here. We start with Walls, then we go right into Calling, Jasmine 17, which is a little bit of a change, more upbeat, but still within those notes, and then My Love. Now again, like I said, R&B through and through, sultry, smooth, seductive voice all throughout. Just the silkiness of her voice, complemented by this great, great R&B production, is something to be talked about for days, months, years to come. When we get into Always Be Mine, featuring a goat of mine, Jordan Ward, this is when I said, this album's gonna be great. And I'm only 5 songs in. Even though Always Be Mine is a little more upbeat, it still has that same element of playing this for someone else, thinking about someone else. Now, when we get into Closet, Bad Guys, and GMFU, this is where Syd switches it up a little bit in terms of the production and the general purposes of the song. GMFU with Big Sean is a very interesting feature choice, but I'll admit he does a great job here. This whole album can be played front to back, just like Masego's. And I really, really love that about it. And it's this play between loving on someone and wanting someone. And you got me messed up if you think I'm a go for what you're saying. And I love that bounce back and forth on this album. Now we get into Do Better, Anytime, Water, and Too Many Days. Now, like I said, still within that R&B production, but mixing it up just enough. Now, here we get into another one kind of similar to Walls with Water. And oh my goodness, this is another song, like I said, you're playing it only specific times. Because if you're just listening to this, you might be a little bit of a psychopath or you're just playing this at all times. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people that can do that. I'm just not one of them. But great work here. And so with these Anytime, Water, and Too Many Days, another 3-pack of songs that just flow so beautifully well into each other. Now with James Fauntleroy, we're just gonna call him James. I don't want to disrespect the last name. But this song has a different tone than the last two in a way that's more traditional R&B, Even though a lot of it is traditional R&B, this one feels like it's from a different time. Maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15. We're getting old, it's been a while. But I do love the things that she does here with this song and this artist. Now we get into Too Many Days, which complements Water as well, but ends as that final stamp, that final note to cap this album off. And again, amazing flow from start to finish. 12 out of 12. But I'm just here for the camera score. 9 to 10 out of 10 on this album as well. R&B is truly back and in great hands. Now we get into the most questionable one. I hate to say it, Steve Lacy's album. It's called Oh Yeah with a question mark. And that kind of denotes what the album is about to be about. Only 10 songs, still a great amount, but this one's a little tough for me to rate. I'm a huge Steve Lacy fan, but I feel he kind of let us down on this one. In terms of the flow of this album, it feels a little bit disjointed. Now it still has those R&B notes, but it's more of a rock slash pop angle that he took for a decent amount of those songs. And I feel like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now he starts off with Oh Yeah, the name of the album, and it kind of gives you the tone. It's like a 80s slow dance night in one of those old movies. And it still hits, but it kind of bites it later on in certain songs. I like this one. Now this follows more into Is It Cool with SZA, great feature as always, and it shows more of the usual Steve Lacy vibes. It has a little bit of that 80s scratch to it, like I said, but this one is more traditional for him, and I like this song as well. We then have The Feeling, again, a good song, but now it's really starting to feel like the end of an 80s film montage at this point. And I'm loving the vibes, but it's just, if he maintains this for most of the album, it's great. But then we kind of get a record scratch switch to something entirely different. Because we get Pure Color with Erica, another in that same vibe, but then we go straight to Show You Me. Still a great song, but now we're kind of doing more of the acoustic vocal sample. Now I'm not against it, but it is a disruption of the flow of the album, in my opinion. And again, like I said, this all does flow with that 80s punk rock vibe. But then we get into Doom, and I'm kind of just, I don't dislike the song. I don't outright hate it. I just feel like it's not one I'd really like to listen to in terms of the flow of this album, or maybe just in terms of Steve. Maybe if this was a single disconnected from this, I'd probably like it more. But I definitely remember listening to this album and thinking, how does this song fit with the rest? The theme is still there, but it's the production that kind of off-putting. And then again, we kind of jump back to this acoustic vibe with Nothing. And it's like we went from the 80s slow disco dance to kind of the acoustic vibe, then we jumped up to rock, and then now we're back to the acoustic vibe. Again, an album should have highs and lows, but I feel like these highs don't match with the lows. And then we get into the final songs: Love, Sex, Drug Bomb, Nice Shoes, and Baby. Now, Love, Sex, Drug Bomb, I do like. Shout out to the feature from Cecil Believe, which I've never heard that name before, but it's a really cool name. This song carries pretty well with the rest. Kind of follows that semi-rock acoustic, semi-80s vibe, and I like it. But then we get into Nice Shoes slash In Your World. Two songs in one, and boy does it feel like it. This song is, I believe, 9 minutes, and it feels like 20. I'm sorry. I simply couldn't finish this song. It's just too much. I couldn't put it in a playlist. I really wouldn't listen to it again. I just feel like it's a miss in my opinion. And then we get into the Bebe, which just sounds like, it just feels out of place. Again, instrumentation is semi-similar, but it's just the overall feel and sonically the sound just does not seem to match with the rest of what he's going on. Again, I get it. This is a different vibe and I applaud his attempt. We're doing the 80s slow dance, disco, but mix of R&B. But I feel like sometimes those mixes are clashing within this very album. Some of these songs feel like they could be placed in something else or omitted entirely. Now, this might hit for some people, the guitar notes, the strings, the instrumentation that brings you back to a different time, all with a modern artist. Kind of reminiscent of someone like Q with Hello and things like that. Love his work. But I feel like in this very album, it doesn't always mix and match the best. There are certain songs that are jarring enough to take me out of the flow of the album, unlike the sultry subtleties of the previous albums I described in Syd's album and Masego's album. I just feel like, oh yeah, it's kind of yeah, all right, in my personal opinion. It's 10 songs, which actually makes it perfect to rate. And in this one, I'm sorry, it's gonna have to be a 7 to 8 out of 10. And that sucks to say for Steve Lacy, who I really, really loved his last album. But I feel like this one mostly pales in comparison to the last one. But hey, you let me know. Is R&B back? Kind of never left, but you let me know if it's back. And let me know what other music you've been listening to in the comments. And I'll see you guys on the next one.